Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8.52. Alright, well here we are. Okay. Reorganize the armies a bit better. Moving up the headquarters, we're going to put those under that. This guy's just too far out until we get him up there for proper command and control, but that should be soon. Started offensive here a little bit more coordinatedly. No, that isn't quite a word, but I'm hoping it will. It's doing all right there. Oh, they're just about broken. That's good. Okay, range finding equipment. Of course, range finding is important, particularly with artillery. And we more or less max that out for some time to come. Well, I don't plan on playing much past 45, even if... Yeah, well, let me say, if we're, moving in and crushing Germany in late 45, I might continue into it. But if we're just still sitting there as a stalemate, well, then I'm probably not going to. Germany will have... It's a very interesting thing as I'm sitting here thinking about it. At what point... Some more Lend-Lease to kick in. We got all these upgrades going on. At what point do you consider Germany victorious, so the Allies just going that they can't keep pushing? Give them money for fuel. Yes, we'll do that. And airborne assault tactics. That is good. We like that. No, we're only at 37. We're going to stop that because we're going over here to production. To reduce production cost, I think, is more important. So, yeah. I know Django, who watches this series at least sometimes recently, asked me, you miss, because I hopefully get most of the notifications of when people post in the threads, but what would have happened? I made an episode in my German series just talking about my thoughts on Nazi Germany had the Nazis won, and what it would have been like. And he asked, of course I presume he's read the answer. It was fairly long, but not all of you, or very few of you will have. And one of the things was what would have happened, when Hitler died, because obviously Hitler was going to die at some point. And medium armor designs. Okay, so we are ended out there. Okay. And my when, how did he die? During the war, shortly after the war, because hey, there were assassination plots all throughout Hitler's career, not just sort of the famous ones, that are fairly well talked about. Now we're going to wait a little bit for a little more support. And the Stauffenberg was sort of the famous last big one, but there were, half-baked artillery carriage design, assassination plots. There were fairly well organized things that just didn't work out. Or like the Stauffenberg, that was actually a coup d'etat. Meaning it wasn't just we're killing Hitler, there was the whole reserve army or home army or whatever you want to term it, uprising, and specifically around Berlin that coordinated with the assassination attempt. So it was more than just a few officers working to kill Hitler. But so if that, and obviously, who takes over? Well, who else dies in it? Is it a just a natural sort of plane crash or type thing, and Goering, Goebbels, and Himmler, and whoever else you may care to name, were they also in the aircraft when it crashed? Well, then, I don't know who would take over if everybody dies. Who's going to take over? That's a big, But presumably, if it's just Hitler, the person who takes over is Hermann Goering. We're already full up. We haven't even gotten to there. We need more transports up here. We're sending some, I know, but we need more. We've lost a few. Due to enemy action a few times. I need that. I think just that. Yeah. That HQ up here. Rebase. So Hitler knew, like you said, Hitler knew that he faced a lot of assassination attempts. Hitler was worried about, you can die in all kinds of ways in a war. What happens if he dies? After the fall of France, and we often talk about Reich Marshal Hermann Goering, and most people, yeah, whatever, and go on. But I don't think they really understand that, because you have Reichsführer, and you have a few other sort of, sometimes Reichsleiter, but you do have a few other Führers that are defined, including down to, like platoon Führer or whatever, but, in SS ranks kind of thing. Sturmbannführer, or Sturmführer, or whatever. But Reich Marshal, he had been, I think I'm correct in saying, Air Marshal, which was basically a Field Marshal rank. Hermann Goering had been for quite some time before the war, I don't remember his exact date of elevation to that, but he was there when there was basically no other field marshals in the German army, and I might be wrong about that, but there were basically none, or very few. He was that in a martial ceremony, vaguely reminiscent of Napoleon when he first handed out his marshal's batons to a bunch of high-ranking generals. Though it wasn't nearly as big in the sense of an audience or whatever, but a bunch of them after the fall of France and the forming of Vichy and all that, they had a martial ceremony in Berlin in the Reichschancellery. Created a bunch of field marshals. List. I'm just Reichenau. I'm blanking on some of the other, but your sort of basic crop of starting field marshals. Most pretty good generals. I think there were also a few admirals that got promoted to a higher admiral rank, but equivalent to a field marshal. At that ceremony, Hermann Goering was made Reich Marshal, and that was a rank above a field marshal, above an air marshal, that was actually above the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, which is not the Oberkommando der Heers, the army, above the general staff of the German armed forces, which includes everybody's armed forces, Army, Navy, Air Force. He's made that, so he is in a military command position just below the Führer. So he's in this. It's unchallenged that he is the next in command after Hitler of all the German armed forces, not just the Luftwaffe. It's sort of a clear distinction. So he's that, and even though Rudolf Hess, in some recent readings, I've realized that he's a bit more popular amongst the people than I sort of thought he was. But he was popular, but he sort of governed the internal workings of the Nazi Party fairly well. And he was sort of that kind of, disputes between various levels and, jurisdictions within, whether it's the DAF or the NSDAP parties or the SA or whatever. He was sorting out a lot of those things constantly, and he was sort of the arbitrator of all of that, and literally like daily dealing with that kind of stuff. So he was a very busy and very work-oriented person in doing that. And he was the deputy Führer, but he really didn't have, shall we say, the gravitas and with a lot of the institutions to take over from Hitler. So even before he did his flight to Scotland, he was already sort of passed over as primary successor. And that's basically, so during the war and right after the war, I know we're sort of going off on a tangent here, but trying to make this short, it would be Goering if he was alive and well, and we're presuming right now a general, either Hitler dies when Germany is completely victorious, or Germany's like this or better off, Italy's fully under control, and things are going fairly well. This isn't a desperation play. This is just a succession for Hitler, Germany going well, and have won the war recently. So Goering would take over. Now, what happens 10, 20, 30 years later after the war? Hitler, of course, health by the end of the war was ruined. If you look at some of the very last footage of him, he's just shaking uncontrollably one of his hands. When you sort of shake that way, not that you can't concentrate and say write your signature properly, I'm not saying he was, but you can sort of momentarily focus and concentrate, but the second you lose focus, he's going back to tremors in his hands. And when you're having tremors like that, there's more wrong with you. Some of it, and I often talk about some of the documentaries, Hi Hitler, and some of the other drug stuff. Yes, he was being filled with various drugs. I don't know all of the drugs. It was various doctors, to some degree quacks, that, and I don't even know if he's hooked. Goering is hooked. Goering is hooked on opiates. That comes from him being wounded in the 1923 putsch in Munich, and flees to Sweden. His wife was Swedish. Flees to Sweden, and during that process he gets hooked on opiates. But Hitler, I don't know how hooked he is versus just being filled with drugs under various doctors' supervision. Well, part of that is, I think, drugs dealing with uppers and downers to, get yourself awake, get yourself asleep, because of all the stress. He was had to be under tremendous stress in trying to manage the war, and you're losing the war, and I'm sure increased stress with the assassination plot we were just talking about, and other elements. So in a losing situation, his health is wrecked. If things are going great, like we were looking at my last German series, you'd taken out the Soviet Union, you'd taken out Britain, and you're invading continental U.S. with, large formations. Things are going great. I don't know that Hitler's health is wrecked. Sure, there's still a certain amount of stress, but hey, you make a bad call, you lose a few cores. You're not losing the whole country, at least as sort of Hitler's mind would see that, because he was very into sacrificing people. So I could easily see him living 20, 30 years after the war in relatively good health. Not saying that he would have, but he could have. If at that point he dies, I don't know. Either, I guess you have a choice of another old man taking over, whoever else is around. Still around, or sort of a group of old men, I'm thinking, I don't know, Speer and Himmler and Joseph Goebbels or whoever, that are also going to be old men by that time. That's a possibility, one guy, and then a succession of them, when they, live 2 years longer than he dies, and the next guy, and then the next guy. That's somehow these regimes happen. Or, like I say, a junta, a group of them that's ruling together. Because obviously Goering is going to be getting up there with an age similar to Hitler, so I don't know who would outlive who. You're looking at that. I think Hitler was a little older than Goering, but not much. The other comes from, the other question is sort of, who takes over Nazism after the war? Because if you study National Socialism, if you will, or Nazism, there are different strains of it and different viewpoints. But I really think the guy who, or the organization that would take over, and this was sort of put in the question of who would the SS or the Waffen-SS take over for the army. And that was sort of my point, is the people, the SS, more than just the Waffen-SS, the SS, people who watch every other organization, who has spies everywhere, who knows what's going on, they're the ones I think are going to end up on top with a Nazi victory. Though Himmler is not anywhere near my top candidate for taking over Germany. If everybody else dies in an airplane and he's the last high-ranking guy shortly after the war, yeah, maybe. But he really was very uncharismatic. I sort of think Reinhard Heydrich, the guy who was killed here in Prague, was sort of being groomed by Himmler to be the next leader. He was younger than, not by a whole lot, but a bit younger than Himmler, and he was very charismatic. And so I think he was sort of being groomed there. But my sort of hypothesis is that a young SS hero somebody like Michael Whitman or some other young SS guy out of the war who survives the war would sort of rise in the ranks of the SS and sort of in the public imagination and be a potential, for long-term takeover from Hitler, because the SS would be in such a place as to be the most powerful organization. And you sort of have to remember that's basically what Goering was. Goering was the charismatic fighter pilot from World War I who very quickly, very early, latches on to the Nazi party. He saw something in Hitler, he saw something in the Nazis. He wasn't, I don't believe, from Bavaria and Munich. I'm pretty sure he was a Berliner, more or less, up in this part of Germany. But he finds Hitler. I mean, he's there for the putsch, and there early on. And so I see a similar sort of path and trajectory. We'll get back to the war of a potential successor coming out of no, you're too beat up. Coming out of the ranks of the SS as sort of a young charismatic kind of guy thing. At least that's how I sort of see it. If you guys want to chime in here or somewhere else, I would gladly entertain that, because I think it's fascinating. So obviously we're dealing with a big what if because we don't know. Trying to hit them on the flank while they're hitting me here. Okay. Let's move these guys up. Now, what are we doing out here? I've sort of been ignoring this. Still looks mostly like they're just... What level of fortification do we have here? Okay, yeah, good. Some level 2 pillboxes. Now they're attacking across the river, into mountains. We've got level 2 pillboxes, so I still think that's fairly safe. Okay, hedgehog defense. They're really good anti-submarine weapons. I'm actually going to let that go. That will help a lot. Oh no, this is not that. This is hedgehog defense of... Oh man. But it's defense. It's this one for all-around defense for ground units. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's really good, but we're gonna shift that because we're not yet into 44, so we're gonna shift that into production, I think, of short-range aircraft. Yeah, looks like everything's going into upgrades. Wish the Americans give us more Lend-Lease. I'm going to shuttle a few more of these units that have been sitting up here. Sort of talked about a little bit of possibility of doing another Narvik. I may do that, but I'm sort of right now thinking that, and I'm looking at, you know, oh, we got it. This is messed up, but not now. Now isn't the time for it, but once the D-Day invasion happens, I'm thinking about a an invasion somewhere in this area. It's not that good a terrain to... Okay. We want to add him into the mix here. Just get more benefits by having this guy here. And do we have a better general? Yeah, but we must have a much better general somewhere. What about our remaining forces down here? No, he sucks. He's not bad, but not good. I don't want to pull, well, forces from there. Who do we have here in the home countries? Yeah, no, we're not going to demote him, but... Oh yeah, he's much better. So is he. They can live without leaders for a while. Which one of the top two guys here? Go with him. There we go. But once, because we saw what happened here with Germany streaming in forces, and with all of the various air battles going on, we have some idea. Some good SS heavy armor there, it looks like. Medium heavy armor. Probably some basic divisions, Hungarian militia units, SSHQs just probably generated via defense, hanging around. Mountain troops in the wrong place, of course. Light infantry, Hungarian light infantry, those aren't going to be all that bad. Probably in this area, I guess, is where we're having the invasion going to happen with the Americans, and then we're going to see a reaction that's going to happen with that. A lot of these forces here are going to stream towards it. Don't know how effective they're going to be, but I'm sort of kind of afraid it's going to become another one of this, another sort of stalemate. Yes, I've been able to push out a few provinces now, but not much. Which, you know, good to push back on them, but I don't want to just create another stalemate in here, being pounded by units. So Germany's going to have to face an option with the East still being pushed somewhat by the Soviets, though I've noticed Germans have secured this, so you know, it doesn't look like they're going to lose Leningrad anytime soon. But they're still being pushed here. So either they're going to have a bunch of junky units facing the Americans there, or they're going to have to pull units from the east, maybe units from the Italian campaign. Or, and I presume that there are, I don't know, we can fly some. Let's see, do we have some? Yeah, let's do that. We're going to do some air superiority over here. So hopefully that'll give us an idea of just how strong some of these areas are, and they may be fairly weak. But if they're fairly weak, then great, we can take them out. If they're fairly strong, what's going to happen is that they're going to decide to move forces up here, which will weaken it down here. So I'm hoping to be able to move in and take a port or more, and whether it's, you know, someplace like down here in the Peloponnese, and hold it if they hammer hard, or be able to retreat if it goes bad. If it doesn't go bad, it goes well, we can, you know, advance on. That's just sort of my plans, subject to change, of course. Okay, electronic computing machines. When Alan Turing is doing his work, we now have good computing machines. So we're going to focus our research on shipbuilding. And of course that research will be better, quicker, faster. Support that attack. Come on. Go after the Croats, see if we can get into there before they... Good. Looks like they shattered, maybe? I don't know. Okay, wing aerodynamics. That means our aircraft will fly better. Let's see. Yeah, U-boat's nice, but we're not really building any. So, well, we need more oil, so let's increase efficiency there. Alright, now that we've got some of this built down, get a little bit more, producing some of the stuff we need. And I think at this point we're going to end this episode here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. Do appreciate that, of course. And of course your comments. Love reading them. Try to respond to everyone. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.